Yes, Allison, I would approve or move to approve the agenda.
Great. Thank you, Allison. Do I have a second?
I'll second. Dawn.
All right. Thank you, Dawn. All right. So we have a motion to approve and a second the tonight's agenda. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any,
Aye.
any opposed? Any abstentions? Any discussion? All right. The agenda has been approved for tonight's meeting. I looked and I didn't see Ellie. I didn't see any oral comments for this evening's meeting. Did you?
I had been checking through the day, and that is correct. There are no new comments for this evening. Public comments.
Okay.
I Linda, real quick, as a FudTech rep, I had 3 things that teachers wanted me to ask about that are not on the agenda. And so it was just updates, whether there were any updates about these 3 things. So the student Gmail, the authentication of students on Zoom, and the merging or working together harmoniously of School Loop and Google. These are probably in Lucas' update. I just wanted to, that was what teachers were asking me if I could ask about.
Okay, and Lucas, will you cover that? You'll cover that stuff in your CTO report, correct?
Yes, I'll cover that.
Okay, great. Awesome. Thank you very much. And besides that, I don't think we had anything. Did people have a chance to, does anybody else have anything they'd like to discuss that was not on the agenda? All right. So do I have, did people have a chance to look at last meeting's minutes? And if so, I'm sorry.
I had 2 really tiny things. I don't know what page it's on. I'm looking. There's a tiny typo in item 3. I can't even find it anymore. Michelle suggested. Where did it go? Oh, it's the other page. I'm sorry. Item 2. At the second sentence, LMS by a platform. I think that's just a typo. Second sentence of item 2. And then
sorry, I needed to unmute myself. I see the LMS comment, but it's your learning management system by, oh, yeah, okay, I see. Thank you.
And then the only other thing that I had that was substantial is on page, whatever the next page is, item 3. It says Allison advocates for 2 student representatives from 2 different areas. If you could add that in. The only reason that I was advocating for 2 representatives is so they would be more representative, as Tom was also advocating. And if they're not going to be from 2 different areas, I don't think we should have 2. So that's kind of a meaningful distinction. So if you don't mind putting in that Allison advocates for 2 representatives from 2 different attendance areas, I would really appreciate that.
Allison, would that be in paragraph 1 of
it's
section
paragraph
3?
2 of item 3.
Student representatives, okay, from 2 different attendance areas?
Correct. Thank you so much. Sorry, I know it's hard to take minutes. That was my job last year mostly. You do a beautiful job. Thank you so much.
All right. Well, I've got those 2 requests now modified in the minutes from last time.
And I do have 2 changes. One is just a typo on the last page under my CTO update. Second paragraph, first sentence. LCP funding for staff laptops. Laptops is spelled wrong.
That's corrected now. And this was looked over quite a few times, so that's those are impressive misspellings. So.
And then the only other thing I wanted to mention in the last paragraph, We didn't actually do public bidding for this. We're just looking at existing state contracts.
I'm going to remove that first sentence. Would that be sufficient?
Yep.
All right.
All right, any other questions or comments regarding the minutes from last month? Okay, do I have a motion to approve the October 5th, 2020 minutes for TAC?
Yes, Allison, I would move to approve the minutes from last meeting.
Okay, thank you, Allison. Do I have a second?
Second.
Barth will second. Thank you very much, Barth. All those in favor of approving the minutes with the requested corrections, please say aye.
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 Any objections, say nay. Any abstentions? Any further discussion? Okay, so the minutes will be filed with the corrections that were mentioned and we can move on. Thank you very much. All right, so we're going to move on to old business. Barth actually received, as I think you all hopefully have seen from his email, he received a response back from the Surfboardy group regarding what they would like. And we can have some discussion regarding that. Does anybody have any comments on what they're requesting?
I actually haven't seen it. I apologize. I thought I read all the emails about this meeting, but could someone kind of sum up what they asked?
Barth, do you want to discuss what you got back from the surfboard group?
Sure. And maybe you could bring it up on the.
Okay, let me give me 1 second and I'll bring it up.
Sure. But basically we found out that they were actually asking for a voting member. So that's the first big question to the committee. Are we willing to add any new voting members to our committee? And then if that's a yes or a no, we could take a read on adding one student member that is voting to our committee. But I think probably the first round is this committee's been around for a long time. Do we want to change the numbers of committee members? And are we willing to entertain that level of change? Because the ex officio idea, which is what we all thought it was about adding the board members, that was one thing. They're not voting. It's, honorary sort of, or make sure that they're welcome, or however we want to say that. But in this case, it would be significant to our bylaws to add a new voting member. So I think that's our first, if anybody had any feedback on there. And
well, I guess Barth, from and actually anybody else on the committee, other committees, and I think Lucas and I had this discussion on other committees that Surfboardy sits. Are they voting? Do people know, are they voting positions or are they just ex officio positions? And
they're mostly voting.
They are voting positions. Okay. Go ahead.
I was just curious. There was some discussion last time about whether it would have to be a Surfboard-y member or whether they would be helping us find a student who is interested in sitting on the committee. Did they respond to that? Because it would make a difference for me whether it's the same few kids in the district weighing in on every single committee or whether they're more representative of the student body as a whole.
Yeah. So Allison, can you see this is the response, I believe, right, Barth, that we got back from Zion regarding what they're asking? I think that pretty much summarizes what not summarizes, but this is what he asked for. Is that correct? Yeah. The screen that I'm sharing shows exactly Zion's response to Barth's email.
In the last paragraph, it sounds like they would prefer having it be a Surfboard-y member.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Okay. Thank you.
In his response, he had mentioned something about surfboardy bylaws requiring their representatives to take part in at least one district committee, and the single person that they have that is interested in being on TAC is not assigned to a committee right now. That seems like it's a nice arrangement for this year. I don't know if any years moving into the future there would also still be interest, or if it's just a result of this one vacancy that they have.
Yeah, and that's the problem, right? Is for us, it's it's not just making a seat available for them. We have to change our bylaws, which then proceed to move forward. So it would put the incumbents on anybody that comes after us, that they need to have a surfboard member, a voting surfboard member on the committee. Go ahead, Dawn.
Yeah, I was going to ask that question. Is it, if you put it into the bylaws, then does that mean we are required to fill that position?
It's an encumbrance on the future boards, or the future committees. Yes. So if you put whatever you put into the bylaws is encumbrant. It is an encumbrance on future committees.
But they're not required to be a voting member, though, right? For Surfboard E, where it says,
Well, that's what they are asking to be.
Well, but I know Ellie mentioned that the idea is they're each supposed to be on a part of a committee, but does it have to be with voting privileges, or does it still fulfill their obligation if it's not required that they vote?
Based off of what I read in the document that was shared today, it didn't sound like that that detail was there.
So if I might pipe in here, this is Anne. I have never really worked with Surfboard E other than sat on other district committees with Surfboard E members. However, I have worked pretty extensively with teens in a wide variety of types of youth groups. And I think what we have going on here is youths wanting to be represented, and our committee is part of an educational institution for ages 3 to 22. And here we have youth that want to step up. So that's something to think about. I think also this is Surfboard E. While I agree with Allison, it's a pretty small group considering how many kids we have in secondary in our district. Trying to learn how to advocate for a position, make a decision on behalf of their committee, reach out to us, and they went back and forth with Bart. When you read this document, learn how to advocate for their position, offer a compromise. We started at 2, we're down to 1. Trying to learn how to work things out. So as someone who's involved in an educational institution, I feel like we have to work with them when people are asking the question, do we have to find the member? No, we don't. It's like our reps from CSEA, SEIU, FUDTA, the bargaining unit or the Surfboard E gives us their appointee for the year. Where this could get complicated is we operate on a weird year. So that's kind of my 2 cents.
Yeah, and to throw a little bit more on top of that, Anne, is that it sounds like, again, I just went through and I'm gonna go off of what Ellie said. It really sounds like Surfboard E has, from the first bullet point of this note, is they have a member that's interested in TAC. It's hard for us, they can just have some interested in TAC this 1 year. For us to accept that position on TAC, we have to change our bylaws. It's not it's not just we have an interest in having somebody from Surfboardy on here. We actually have to go through and change our bylaws, which is saying that every year now we have to have somebody from Surfboardy on here. And if they don't have anybody that's interested, how do we handle that? It's really hard because that's, I'm assuming that's not a huge group of kids. And I don't know. This is just how I'm reading it. Going off of what Ellie said and looking at the first bullet, they just happen to have one senior, and it happens to be a senior who's interested. So it's not even like he would sit on the committee this year and next year. He would only sit on it this year and then be gone. So it's really, I don't know. That's just how I'm reading it. I don't know if we want to take on the fact that we need to actually change our bylaws in order to make this all happen.
And Linda, I apologize for not knowing the answer to this already, but within our bylaws, is there any language that talks about the parity that has to exist between different groups? I mean, right now we have equal representation from district employees and community members.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's been forever. And then last year, was at the end of last year, the board asked to have 2 ex officio non-voting members. That's a big word. Non-voting members added. So we added them last year.
Prior to that, I suggested adding more teachers, and it was voted down. It's spelled out very explicitly in the bylaws, and we have to take a vote in order to change it.
Right. So it's not an easy, Ellie, it's not an easy process to actually add members onto the board, especially voting members. Because if we started doing that, we could end up with, a committee of 30 people. Go ahead, Lucas.
So the other factor is if we add members, it would also change the number of attendees required for quorum. So
Right.
Even though they're students, as soon as they are voting members, I think that changes that.
Right.
So
That's
if
right.
we didn't have students who are interested next year, for example, if we left the position vacant, I'm actually not sure exactly how that works, but say we did have someone who signed up or was selected for the committee, but they don't attend, I don't know. I think we've had pretty good attendance, but I know historically there have been times where that's been a challenge, I've been told.
Right. Well, if a voting member doesn't attend, then we're missing quorum, right? I mean, like, we're going to talk later about the fact that Frank has resigned, and the fact that he resigned kind of right now lowers our quorum by by a half, because we don't have that seat filled, and that's up to the board to fill that. So, Barth?
I saw Robert might join in with a little history behind the one of our earliest members, behind the ratio and the makeup. Is a student representation on this make sense, or does that fit with the history of this committee?
That wasn't considered way back when. Yeah, it was actually political for having 8 parents and 8 staff people. My recollection is that the parents wanted this committee and many on the staff did not. So they wanted to make sure that the parents didn't have all the say. Basically, one reason why this committee came out is because parents wanted to get some stuff done and they didn't have a way to do it. We had various technology. There were 3 other committees that I was part of before this one, but they were short-lived. They weren't official district committees. They were more like task forces or something. And we wanted ways for experts on networking to get involved. So there was the first CTO who actually kind of put in that requirement had some issues. I would say he's probably the most controversial CTO we've had, and hopefully, thankfully, since then it's been very good. So I would not worry too much about the split and whether adding a student would create problems. I don't think that the reason why we had the split, I don't think really exists anymore. I think seeing other committees, our committee, I mean, to me, voting is not. We've had very few contentious votes. Allison's aware of one, but most of the time we tend to, we come to a consensus on things, on a lot of things, unlike some other committees. But I think quorum is a major issue. Every year we always have 1 or 2 meetings where we don't reach quorum, and then we can't do some of the things we want to do. So I think, to me, that's why I'm thankful that Frank resigned. Often parents just stop coming, and that makes quorum really hard to meet. Having Frank resign has really been the nice thing to do, and that almost never happens. I think we've only had 2 people resign the last 10, 15 years.
Well, and to add to, I so appreciate that Robert has all this history. More recently, there was a staff committee to advise the district on technology issues, and that has been completely dissolved. So it's just important, I think, for anybody listening to this to understand that this is now the only voice that the district has for any sort of input from staff or students or parents about technology in the district. And so it's even more important that we be representative, whatever that means.
All right. So after this discussion, go ahead, Bart.
I'd like to make a motion that we are in favor of adding a voting member to the committee at this point.
Second.
Okay, so Bart has a first and a second. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor of adding 1 Surf 4D member to the committee and I'm sorry. I guess what we need to do is I have a first reading and a second reading. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Of the bylaws?
That is
Okay.
correct.
I wanted to see if the committee first was willing to add a member, and then
Okay.
the second part of it we can have to see if we can get through a first reading, I think is the
Okay.
piece.
Okay, thank you both. Go ahead, Don.
Wait, so what are we we're voting on what right now?
We are voting,
We're voting on
adding a Surf 4D member, a Surf 4D voting member to the committee.
With the understanding that this vote does not actually do that. It creates a first reading.
It creates a first reading of
So
the new bylaws.
considering it further is what we're doing.
We're approving considering a first reading of the new of the bylaws to add a member from Surf 4D, a voting member of Surf 4D.
Scroll up to Linda.
I'm sorry. Yep.
We're basically going after number 1. We're just saying, are we willing to change our bylaws just right off the top, testing the water, to add a voting member? And so we're just aiming at number 1. And so far we've had a first and a second and some discussion.
But voting for number 1, you're saying doesn't mean we're actually doing it. We're willing to discuss it.
We're yeah, exactly.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. Does anybody else have any other comments? All right, all those in favor of moving forward with adding a Surf 4D, I'm sorry, Bart, go ahead.
Sorry, I was saying yes.
Oh.
Sorry, who was the second on that?
Keep that down until Ann was the second. Barth made the motion and Ann made the second.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, so with no further discussion, all those in favor of moving forward with attempting to add a Surf 4D voting member to the board, please say aye.
Aye.
Hi.
All right, any abstentions? All right, so we will move. I'm sorry, go ahead. Go ahead, Allison.
You skip nays. I'm a nay.
You're a nay? Okay.
Yeah.
So we have 1 nay.
2 nays.
All right.
I
2
would love
nays.
to add an officio member.
Okay.
There's 3 nays.
3 nays.
Okay, but
All right.
we're not actually voting on whether or not they're voting members, or
No.
they would have to be a voting member, or we're just considering it. So I'm confused.
We're voting
We're,
on whether to take
we're
a first
voting on
reading
just
after voting.
considering a first reading of the bylaws.
Then I'm fine with it.
I'm sorry, Don?
I'm fine then, yes. I'm just wanting to be clear that we're not officially deciding to adding a
Okay.
voting member right now. We're gonna continue discussing.
Yes, we will continue discussion next meeting. So we'll have a first reading next meeting. All right, so the motion does pass. So we will have a further discussion on this next meeting.
Point of order, Linda, really quickly.
Yep.
Might I suggest, am I allowed to propose an alternative motion that an ex officio non-voting member from Surfboard E be added instead?
Sure. I mean, we can discuss that as well.
Okay,
I don't
would
see any
move
reason
that
why
an
not.
ex officio member of Surfboard E be added instead of a voting member.
Okay.
If there's
So
no,
Ellie, did you get that?
I did get that. Allison is making a motion to add a non-voting student member from Surfboard E.
Thank
I was going to follow up with a question.
Yep.
Is that something that we need to vote on now, or is that simply part of what might come of a conversation of a first reading of a bylaw revision as a potential hold up to that?
I think that would come as part of a first reading. It wouldn't necessarily be a motion. It would just be her dissension.
My only question about that is that it slows it down by a whole meeting. So if I'm allowed to make a motion at this point, that there could then be a first reading of that competing motion at the next meeting, then a decision could be made at the following meeting, whereas not doing that slows it down by one meeting, if that makes sense.
Nope, that's fine. That's fine. So then we have another motion on the floor then to add a Surfboard member. Robert, could you mute your microphone, please? If we could have a second on that. So we're seconding a motion for an ex officiato member of Surfboard E.
Can we not just amend the first motion by Bart to consider an additional member and either make it a voting member or a not voting member? Does it need to be two separate? Because I think that's what's going to be the crux of it, right?
Right. I mean, but the thing is we already voted on the other one.
Okay. Well,
Sorry.
then I'll second Allison.
All right. Thank you, Dawn.
I think that's what we need to do is to discuss both next time. And so if we need this motion to do that, then I appreciate what Allison just did.
Perfect. All right. So we have a first and a second on also considering a non-voting member from Surfboard E to the board. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor of adding or further discussing a non-voting member from Surfboard E, please say aye.
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 All right, any opposition? All right, so next meeting, we will discuss we'll have readings of both a non-voting member and a voting member from Surfboard E. Welcome, Michelle and Gautam. Thank you for joining us.
Sorry, Lynn.
Nope, that's all right. We all have things going on. It's not a big deal.
No, I've been on the computer for half an hour. I've been trying to find the login, and I didn't get a login.
Sorry about that.
Thank you.
All right, so we have finished with that. So our TAC board presentation, Lucas, did you want to go further with that this meeting, or actually you should discuss what transpired with the board for this?
Yeah, so I actually do have a presentation put together that I'm gonna show tonight, and I'm looking for your feedback on that. Just know it's not polished, but I do have a presentation. And for those who, I can't remember necessarily who might have been here at the last meeting, but I believe our bylaws do not require an annual presentation to the board, but it is something that the board has been requesting from other committees as well as ours. The last time a presentation was given was back in 2016, and then I believe the year before that there was one. So as far as I know, it was at least those 2 years. So that's the history of it. The other thing, last time I had met, I did tell you I was going to get this pushed out to the following board meeting. As it turns out, the November board meeting looks like it's going to be, till 5 in the morning. So they asked if anybody was willing to delay any presentations or anything, and I was the only person. So thankfully, I probably won't need to be at that board meeting, and the people who are there can just get up the next day, and well, they won't even have to get up. They'll just be awake and they'll go to work. So that should work out pretty well. But I'll be sleeping anyways. That's my plan. So, all right. So I'm going to go ahead and present the PowerPoint. And obviously just take notes. I'm not going to read this to you, but I'm going to go through. If you see typos or if you see things that you would like to have added, or if you think there's too much of one thing, just let me know. Okay. Looks like you can see my screen.
Yep, it's all good.
Yep. So on the main page, I did put who our current chair is, and then also last year's chair. And the reason I did that is because the presentation will cover both years, and I just wanted people to know who those individuals were. The introduction is pretty straightforward, reiterating what our purpose is. I'm going to highlight some of our discussions, which I think I actually already see one thing. I'm going to probably change that language. I'm going to put down some recommendations and actions that the committee has taken, and then finish with just showing who our membership is this year. So this is the purpose pretty much from our website. I think there was one item that I didn't include on there, but it's pretty straightforward, word for word. It's not necessarily the language that I would use, but it is what our official language is. And here's the rest of it. I'll give you a moment just to read through to make sure I didn't, make a mistake here. All right. And so for 2019-20, I went back and I looked at the agendas and the minutes. So I believe that there was actually a discussion, and this was before I was here, about the district website transition. Bart, you might be able to provide some of the insight on that. I think at the time you were looking at, and I don't know if it was just the teacher sites that were moving to School Loop, or if it was actually the whole district website. I think that was June. So that was before I was here. Does that sound right, Bart?
Yep.
Yes? Okay.
Yes.
Yep. So during the 1920 year, we discussed the email transition to Gmail for staff. So that was completed right before I started. Obviously, as you know, discussed modifying the bylaws. We extensively covered technology policies. We also talked about lab management software, and we started the discussion about replacing the student information system. We also talked about voice over IP, and you can read this here as well. So I'll let you know I didn't put every discussion topic on here. I think these were some of the items that were probably more extensively talked about. So if there's something that you really want me to put down or add, let me know.
I think since you're covering 2 years, you should cover the fact that you're upgrading the technology for the schools, because that's not only the voice over IP, it's also all the other things there. Upgrading the upgrading the whole lot of money spent on that.
So the reason I didn't put that down was because it wasn't really a topic of discussion as I looked through the minutes.
We had also, Lucas, we had also discussed the fact that who to pick as a vendor for based on the price and things like that. So we had, what your previous, this thing had done was, he had provided the details about what the cost is going to be based on who the vendor is going to implement it, and those kind of things were included in the discussions.
For Gautam, what are you speaking of? I mean, we're going voice over IP. If you're going over all the infrastructure, yeah, that was all well before this. That was before the 2019. We didn't discuss that last year.
2019 last year. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, we're just looking at what happened last year. We're not looking at we're not looking at between 2016 and now. We're looking at what happened last year and what happened and what's happening this year.
Okay, I missed out of the date. Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay, no worries.
For clarity, I tried to, when I put discussion topics down, I put down items that we actually talked about. So even like the Chief Technology Officer updates, some of those items did not make it into the presentation because it was not a discussion. It was more just me reporting out information. So that's what I was looking for when I looked through the minutes of the meetings.
Yeah, Lucas, I don't know. Do we want to discuss student? Can you go back to the last slide? The student email accounts. Do we want to discuss that as a 2019-2020, or do we want to move that forward to 2021?
That was brought up quite a bit last year, Linda.
Okay, all right, that's fine.
Yeah,
I think,
and you'll see when we get to the 2021, I've included it on there as well.
Okay, all right.
I think the value of that is it shows that there is a lot of interest in that topic.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah. And I noted too that we did the TAC member elections because that is a big part of what we do.
Okay, can we, Lucas, can we make a distinction between regular use of word versus vendor related? Like clever is people think about clever functionality means smart, could be interpreted as smart functionality, but we're talking of the clever as a vendor, as a product. So double quote clever or something to make it distinguished from being a use of a word versus use of a trade name.
So you think it should be in quotes?
Yeah. So
yeah, he's looking at it not being like meaning the word clever functionality. He's looking at it as being a product.
It's not an adjective.
It's a product, not an adjective.
Yeah, that's what I meant by saying people you don't want to meet them as thinking as smart functionality or something.
Right. Okay.
Yes.
I can give it a copyright. Actually, it is a copyright.
Yeah.
Or a trademark or something. Yeah.
Well, and that in particular supports our youngest learners. So as we move through the rest of the presentation, we may need to make some.
Oh, and I don't think you're correct in saying it's younger users. They do use it throughout the district. They're using it at the junior high level, if not the high school level.
But considering using trade names is a great one, but also kind of, thinking about structuring. Anyway.
Yeah, no, I know where you're, yeah.
Yeah, so one of the things you'll notice is I tried to avoid using product specific items, but clever is so unique that I felt like I pretty much had to include that term in there. So the other thing to keep in mind is I will provide a little bit of context for these items. And these are just bulleted items, but I will have a little bit of a brief explanation for each item.
This is minor, but the other way to do that would be to reword it as like bullet point single sign-on / program rostering parentheses clever.
Utilizing
Sure.
clever. Yeah.
Yeah,
like
I don't
util-
know if that's clear or not, but
Yeah, that's a good point. You could do support single sign-on program rostering utilizing Clever, the Clever app or whatever.
Good point. Just making a note here. All right.
So,
And then,
Lucas, oh,
Oh.
sorry, go ahead, Gautam.
okay, the previous one, okay. When you're saying distance learning and video instruction, it is that also the choice of the product as well as the instructions to the people of how to use it. So there are two parts to it. When you're talking, suddenly you're moving away from selecting a product to giving instruction of how to use it.
No, it's not the instruction on how to use it. It's for video instruction. It's for classroom instruction.
So that's what I'm trying to say is you can interpret it as two ways. So that's what I'm just trying to say here. Is
But
to
keep
make
in mind, it's just a slide. It's going to be accompanied with Lucas explaining it.
Right.
So I think it's okay.
yeah, I think to keep in mind here, when I looked at the agenda and the meeting minutes, we actually did talk about the concept of distance learning and video instruction generically. As a committee, we actually talked about what that would look like. And this was really even before, the district was even exploring the idea of purchasing Zoom. We were just literally at the very beginning stages. People were talking about, why aren't we using Google Meet versus why are people using the free version of Zoom? It was more of a generic conversation rather than talking about specific products and recommendations.
that's what I was trying to distinguish between here.
Yeah.
I'm going
Okay.
to jump in. I think he's saying if you're just watching videos is a type of video instruction versus providing learning instruction through online video services, Zoom or Meet. That's where it becomes too generic, saying, are we just watching videos to learn?
Oh,
Or are we receiving learning through Meet or Zoom?
Thank you, Tom, for explaining it better.
Got it. All
Okay,
right.
go ahead, Ann.
We're already on slide number 6 in this presentation, Lucas. And
Yep.
As you know from some management meetings, they will cut, slash, and make this as short as possible.
Yep.
So in the beginning, referring to the extensive minutes that we have for this committee over the past years. And also, some people have made some awesome suggestions. We're only on slide 6. But if I think for the benefit of the board and potentially in December, we will have new board members, potentially, we'll at least have one. Having, quickly letting them see and capture, like we talked about earlier, the two sides, voting or non-voting. So for example, student emails, personal accounts versus district accounts, because that's what we've been talking about. Allison finally has me understanding how complicated it is, particularly in secondary, for these kids to get a hold of teachers back and forth. It's becoming a much bigger issue in distance for younger learners. But I think that would help give them the crux of what the issue is and why we're discussing it. And then they can get the data in the back because quickly through this when you present.
Sure, that's actually a really good idea to include the part of our website that they can go to, especially if we have new board members. That's actually a great idea.
I've been in that hot seat before,
Yeah.
the committee chair, Lucas, so.
Got it. Okay, good. All right. Anything else before we move on?
Nope.
All right. You have to realize I can't see you while I'm presenting. Since I'm in full screen mode. Okay, so I start with our discussion points, and then I talk about the recommendations and the actions that the group took. And some of these could potentially be worded a little bit differently, but I feel like it's at least accurate. I noted that 2 of our members participated, obviously, on the student information stakeholder evaluation group. And I think if we had had more time, the whole TAC probably could have, given a recommendation, but with shelter in place and the timing of things, it was really difficult. Supported and approved the updating of the technology related policies. And they may ask questions. If they want to ask more specific questions about this, they certainly can. But I wanted to have it be fairly generic. I will probably mention that it's the student use and the employee use of technology that we're working on. Noted our working committee, and we're going to continue to work on our technology policies. So that was agreed to at the end of last year, and that we approved the bylaws, adding 2 non-voting members for the board. And that was the main recommendations and actions I had. Do you guys feel like I'm missing anything there?
Nope.
Wait, Lucas, there was one thing which I didn't see in the purpose. The first one was the fact that the purpose of the TAC is to recommend to the board and not to enforce, or it doesn't have any enforcing power or doing anything about it.
Oh,
That's
well,
a key big difference,
Yeah, yep. So I think, if they were to ask about that, I could certainly address that. I used the language from our website having to do with the purpose of our committee. I didn't want to put any of my conjecture in there, but if they were to ask about that, I could certainly answer that question.
Okay, I just want
Yeah.
to make sure that people should realize that we as this thing, we are not the power of distributing funds, not in the power of enforcing in the different schools or areas or anything. It's just that we are recommending to the board and the board takes the decisions.
Yeah, I think it's pretty clear in the name of our committee as well. We're technology
No, but
as advisory committee, not.
true, but the fact is who we are advisory to is not very clear, and in the purpose we are not stating that
Okay.
at all. I just want to make sure of that. That's all.
Thank you.
All right. 2021, surprisingly, we've already had a lot happening. Obviously, our year is not done yet. I noticed that we, had a welcome and orientation for our new members, because I think we did a really good job on that. Hopefully, our new members appreciated it. I know I did. I actually learned a lot as part of it. We talked obviously about a communication system for our youngest learners. Ultimately, that ended up being a learning management system. It wouldn't have had to, but in our case, it did end up being that. Again, we talked about student email accounts and the benefits of what that would look like. We talked about teacher laptops, student information system again, and then we're obviously talking about the technology use agreement, and we're reviewing and putting updates on that, which I think January is when we're going to try and bring some information to the committee to look at. And then we're now looking at bylaws again for students.
And I think as a note, Lucas, maybe not put it in the slide, but just for the elementary LMS is mention that it's Seesaw. Just so that kind of gives people, if they have a question, they can at least go and look and see what it is. Instead of just kind of having it be this kind of gray area, this is the tool that we're using and that we're asking our primary staff to use.
Yeah, yep. I'm definitely going to mention the product name for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you
Okay.
can make it as a table somewhere in one of the presentations that this is what the cross reference of what we are doing, so that it's all together in one place rather than in different places. And people can refer to that to see what we are using for the learning management system, for the SIS, and all this all are together. And the website references are given there so that they can look up and figure out if they want to see what actually they are looking at.
Go ahead, Ann.
I think most of that is already put together and is on the Fremont Unified website. Gautam's suggestion of including a link or a reference would be great, but all the help documents, things for parents, I think Bart and CNI assessment had something to do with that. Thank you all, because it's been really helpful in the interest of customer service for families.
And when I'm going through this, I will mention some of the specific products, especially when we talk about the actions that the committee has taken. I will mention specific products. There's no question about that.
Okay.
Yep.
Let's move forward.
Yep. So here, when we talk, the committee recommended the selection, implementation of an elementary level communication tool. This is where I will say the tool that ultimately was selected was Seesaw. So for this year, these are the 3 items that we're taking action on. Actually, I realize I don't have the board policies on here.
So Lucas, I read that, and what popped into my head is Bright Arrow, not Seesaw. So you might need to clarify instructional communication or something. Everybody's lens is different when they're receiving, so.
Yep, I agree with you on that, because I
Thanks.
think, yeah, here I actually used elementary learning management. Verify the language.
And I don't think we did too much on the selection of Seesaw. I don't think that was ever brought before us.
No, but
I think that was just a system that was selected without our involvement.
yeah, there was a meeting where there was a resolution. I don't know if resolution is the correct term, but there was a resolution passed where the Technology Advisory Committee recommended the selection and implementation of an improved communication tool for elementary students. Yep.
Okay.
And
It was mentioned to potentially consider School Loop, and that was part of what we looked at, the committee looked
Yeah.
at, and that was part of what came from TAC.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. I forgot the School Loop portion of it, turning on School Loop for. All right. Now, never mind. I'm now reliving that.
It's a good point, though. It's not like we evaluated new systems. We just said, hey, elementary doesn't have access to School Loop, and we talked about Gmail, and we talked about, the fact that it's just very hard to communicate with parents at the elementary level.
Okay. Yep.
Right.
Thank you for
clarifying. I will tell you that at the meetings that I was at, every time we talked about a solution, an elementary level learning management system or communication tool, every meeting, and I was at all of them, I mentioned that the Technology Advisory Committee recommended the selection and implementation of one of these tools. So I do believe that that had an impact on moving that forward a little bit quicker.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep. So it was communicated.
Yes, I forgot the specifics of it.
Sure.
Thank you for reminding me.
Yep. And I will add the board policy. At the end of last year, we agreed that we were going to continue to improve the student use of technology and the employee use of technology policies to address some of the distance learning issues or topics that had come up. All right. And there's our TAC members.
Perfect.
So one thing that's missing that I think we've done in previous ones, and I don't remember, I sent Linda the last two. Generally, and now the situation is a little bit different, but generally this is also an opportunity to remind the board, because the board doesn't think about technology that often until recently. But we used to talk about, hey, our wiring system sucks and we don't have enough devices and so on. But it's, I assume that people are still looking for technology. So this is an opportunity to do that. I would say the presentation is kind of long, but so usually we had fewer slides on past achievements, although it's a 2-year presentation instead of 1 year. But we should give an opportunity to advocate for things that people want.
Okay. I will make a note here. I'll think about what that would look like. We are getting funding for teacher laptops. Yeah. All right. I'll think about that.
The devil's advocate though on that is that they're not it's not going to take very long to get through a lot of those slides, and we haven't been able to talk to them about what we're doing for what was the last time, 2016 you said.
Yes.
So
yep.
So I feel like you're going to get through those fairly quickly, and it's good for them to know what this committee's been doing for the past several years. We haven't had a chance to tell them what we're doing. So
yeah.
Yeah.
I will share that the board has asked presenters, if at all possible, to keep the number of slides to 10 or less, which I believe I've met that requirement. I did think about not having quite as much information at the beginning about the purpose of the committee, but I feel like there's some value in really showing the breadth of conversations, the topics that the group has talked about. So I guess my question, and I'm definitely not opposed to reducing the length of the presentation. My question would be, do you guys think it's necessary to have all the bullet points around the purpose of our committee? Or, I don't know, what are your thoughts on reducing the length of it?
I'm going to jump in. I would suggest that you just have one slide that summarizes our purpose, and
that's what I was going to say.
Grab the highlights and remind it that's an advisory, and we're a tool for the board to use, and we're looking for things to talk about, and we're ready to respond to their needs, that kind of stuff. And then that way, if we do feel like there is some concerns on the horizon or still important subjects or whatever behind, what's next for our team, we could have a slide probably for that says, dialing in teacher training and building out, answers, web-based, whatever those pieces are that we're, wondering what will be the next challenges.
And maybe that kind of ties into what I was trying to ask for earlier in terms of advocacy, reminding the board that we need to train our staff. How many staff are using technology? What can we do to get them to use more technology if they should or what have you? It sounds like the hardware we're in the best shape hardware wise. The teachers are getting new laptops. A lot of the kids have Chrome devices and hotspots and what have you. And do we need more projectors? Do we need other things? Or do we just need to train teachers how to use this stuff?
And one thing which is missing is, that we are not highlighting the collective experience of the TAC members. That they are from the industry, they know the stuff slightly better than the people around, and they are selected, they are not elected mostly. That way, what I'm just trying to say is the purpose is known, but the fact is that these people can bring collective experience which they can tap on is something which you should highlight also.
So I'm going to chime in. I like that, but that could be a simple summary under our membership thing saying industry members, 26 years of blah, 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 200 hours of volunteer, whatever, and district members, 700 years of, complaining about this or whatever. That kind of stuff.
700?
That's a
really
lot.
Wow,
What
that's
time
a
is it?
lot.
What time is it?
Go ahead, Michelle.
Hi. One thing that I would probably put is highlight that there was um, that we reached out to the teachers of what they were looking for in laptops, so that it wasn't just this group picked out what the laptops are going to be for the teachers, but that it was a research and a fact finding. It doesn't have to be on the slide, but certainly something to be said when you're making the presentation.
Yeah. All right, I will definitely do that. And I'll make a note at the membership page about a little bit of what we look for in our members.
I think rather than saying what we look for in the members, if you say we have collectively this kind of experience on our staff, on our TAC membership, that should be good enough. Because sometimes you have to choose somebody who is willing to come over, and that could be the membership could be slightly, casting it in stone could be slightly big problematic.
Okay.
I would suggest just sending out an email, and then each member could send a summary to you, and you could just pick and choose, Lucas.
Okay.
Moving on.
All right. Any other discussion? All right. Moving on. Moving on to new business. We have from our last meeting, we had some. I'm sorry. I guess I should share the agenda. Hold on one second. We had discussion regarding staff internet and some staff having some issues with internet. So Lucas, did you want to give a little brief discussion on?
Yeah, I think I'm thinking why we put this on here was just to reiterate that as a district, we have definitely been trying to support our staff, but there's not funding available for us to be able to pay for internet for our staff members. All of the special funding for that has been focused on our students. But I do just want to reiterate that as an IT department, and I've talked with a number of our IT support specialists, we have frankly gone above and beyond in supporting some of our families in this. I do also just want to recognize that some of our families are experiencing hardship, and it's not an easy situation. But I just wanted to share that we are doing everything that we can to support our staff members. Sometimes I'm talking with principals about specific needs for a teacher. One of the good things is that some of our families, or teachers, I should say, that have had difficulties are coming into the school building and working. And the good news, of course, there is they can very easily physically distance. And so that has been a solution for quite a few of our staff. And I've even confirmed with really every building typically has between 5 and 10 teachers coming in at the elementary level, and at the middle school and high school level, oftentimes between 15 and 20. So they're teaching out of their classroom, they have reliable internet, and I think that's really also been a really helpful thing for our teachers. So that was really all I just wanted to share,
Okay.
that we are really trying to support our teachers and our staff members.
Yep. Great. All right, and I'm going to move up Frank's resignation before we start on the Clever demo, just so that we can just discuss that. So Frankfurt actually moved out of the area. He moved out of the state. So he had turned in his resignation. And from looking at the bylaws, what I noticed was what Lucas needs to do is I don't know whether we reach out. Robert, you might be able to help out, whether we need to reach out for past applicants and see if they are still interested, and then present those names to the board, and the board needs to fill the vacant position.
Linda, when was the resignation effective of?
I can't remember.
More or less.
It was it last, it was, let me see. Let me see if I have that email.
It was October 6th.
Thank you, Lucas.
So to be honest, we've never done this before. I think this is the second time we've had a resignation, and people just stopped showing up. So we've never actually gone to the board to fill the spot, so we can kind of do what we want to do. We almost always have more applications than spots, so we could go back and ask for someone to join and to fill out the remainder of the term.
Yeah, I mean, I was just going through what the bylaws,
Yeah, that's fine.
what the bylaws had mentioned.
Sure.
So
why don't we do that?
Okay. So I guess we need to let the board know that we had a parent or community member drop out, and we need to replace them.
So yeah, so I would reconfirm with the people who applied this round, and then give the board a new ballot.
All right, sounds good.
All right, sounds good. And are we going to do a clever demo and discussion, or do we want to? We are running a little late on time. We're at 8:10. So I don't know how long the demo is going to take. And Lucas, we still have your CTO update. So what do you guys think?
Don, can you do it in 10 minutes?
I can do it in 5.
All right.
Yes. You go, girl.
All right. You want to, can I take over the sharing?
Yep, you got the steering, girl.
All right. So basically, can you see my screen?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So I'm just going to jump into a demo account from the teachers portal. So basically, this is what it looks like when a teacher goes into Clever. So they have their homeroom page. And the two big things are this homeroom page, and then the classes are listed here. So for a elementary teacher, they'd only have one of these tiles. For secondary, they would have, first period, second period, and so forth. And then when they click on a class, they can see all their students. For the lower grades who use badges, they can print a badge. They could get a one-time backup code if the kids are having trouble getting on.
So for Don, I'm sorry. So for parents that aren't, or anybody on the staff that's on the committee that's not aware, a badge is basically a QR code that the kids have that they can wave in front of the camera, and it will automatically log them in to the system. They don't need to know their username or password. So for like TK and not necessarily TK, but actually TK, kindergarten, first grade, this is a super way for them to get in. They don't necessarily need to have a good keyboard acumen.
So this is what it looks like if you print a badge for the student. And if they have a district issued laptop, a Chromebook, it will also log them into that. But the bottom line is, for teachers, they can go into their classes and see them this way. In the homeroom, and I've been talking about this a lot lately, a teacher can add a period, and you can see I've added some demo periods here. And I can add a Zoom link. So for secondary, if they've been having issues with Zoom bombings and things, they can put a link, and they can add links to these pages if they create a page. So there is this button down here where I can say add a link. And then you can just paste the URL. I uploaded the Zoom icon that you see over here. So you can pick which icon shows up there.
So does Don, does that help with authentication that they've been talking a lot about with the Zoom bombing and stuff?
It's not, because there'll be analytics behind it, who logged in and who didn't. So if I go to my analytics as a teacher, it'll show me my students, and it'll show me, of course, this is a demo account, so it says
Yep.
inactive. But if students have been logging in, like this demo, Alberto Bradley, if he clicked on any of the links in this Clever portal, I would know it. And
Okay.
also, if you post links here as a teacher, it's the kids just click on it. They can't copy and paste it. So
Right.
that's another security thing there. So
But does it, but does
as a
does
teacher,
it help out with the authentication?
no, I mean, not,
No,
not
okay.
how you're looking at it. And remember, the authentication requires that the students are over the age of 16 and create their own Zoom account. But
Okay.
what does happen in Clever is, depending on what you teach as a teacher, the appropriate applications will automatically be put into your portal and available to your students.
Okay.
So this is basically what it looks like for a teacher. And the flip side of that would be what it looks like for the student. So when a student goes in, if the teachers had pages, there would be multiple pages here. You know, it might be, you know, period. This one's period 5 ELA because I created that. They could go to their teacher page. So again, if they were in my class and they came to this page, there would be their Zoom link. If I go back to my portal, because of my class, the kid, these are the applications the student has access to. So instead of needing to go to, you know, to go to Brain Pop and to go to Core 5 and to go to Tinker or whatever's here,
Right.
the kids just go to this one place, they log in with their Google account, then they have access to all these applications without multiple usernames and passwords. So really that was the gist of what you would need to know about Clever. And there you go.
All right. Thank you.
Don, I
was-
appreciate you mentioning the Clever badges in particular, especially for our youngest of students. Just the simple function of being able to use that QR code when you immediately open up a Chromebook or district provided Chromebook really cuts the amount of time between them trying to figure out how to log in versus immediately having access to important links. So just that single feature itself is
I will
awesome.
tell you, back before distance learning was ever anything on anyone's radar, we were well aware of the need for the little ones to have some sort of support in getting onto those computers. And so we've come a long way. And the fact that this year, last year it was their Google username and a random password kind of thing. And this year it's all with their Google account. So I think it's just getting better and better, and we're adding more and more applications. So it makes it, you know, that much more useful. And then for programs that we put in, it does the rostering and all that, which is really, for most of them, it's rostering, which is huge for the teachers to not have to roster their students. And also when then the students change classes, they automatically get moved because it syncs with Illuminate.
Great. Go ahead, Ann.
If someone has really great directions, I'm seeking them, looking at elementary Lucas maybe. Students get enrolled. They enroll them to start school the following day. Then we have to wait overnight for the syncing to happen, to generate the login, to generate the Clever. We're losing instructional time. Kids don't care, but their parents do. So if someone has a great paragraph or a great script, I realize there's 28 more days of Illuminate, and we're hoping that the time lag goes away.
They won't.
So we need to increase communication with, for elementary anyway, TK up, from student support services to the families to the school offices. If we could have a standardized script that we're all using, we're all on the same page, it would be really beneficial.
I have a question. does this allow you to, is this QR code attached to a list of IP addresses or is it any IP address? So that means, let me ask you this question in a different way. That means if I am joining the class, can somebody use my QR code to join it also? So who gets the preferences and how do you resolve this issue?
Are
So
you
you're
asking
talking,
me a question?
so he's talking,
QR code
we
is
have
for the
one,
individual student. It replaces their login credentials. So instead of having to type in their whole username and password, the student has that badge, but only the student has that badge.
Gautam, are you asking if by chance I am a student and I have my code and you randomly were able to acquire my unique code and we were both trying to log in using that same code?
Yes.
Is there any protocol in terms of who gets priority?
And who is prevented? Because the reason is sometimes what happens is if a thing is not working, the parent might just say, oh, mine works, so here's a QR code, use it. And they hand it over to the other kids, parents.
but the parent wouldn't have a QR code, Gautam. It's only at the student level. The students get them from the school. The parents can't create them.
No, can I finish it, please? So the parent can look at his code, his or her student's code, take a snapshot and hand it over to another person. Mine doesn't work. Okay, here's the one that works. And then what happens? Is there a prevention routine or anything for that? Because
If that were to happen, the teacher could void the badge and create a new one.
Right.
But I think what he's saying is, Don, what happens if, say, I got your badge and you're logged in and I log in? What happens there?
We'll both be logged in.
Okay. But you'll both be logged in under your name.
Yes.
Okay.
It would be, yeah. But for the sake of time, I think we should let Lucas do his.
Yes,
Okay.
I don't think that's a big dilemma, Gautam. I think most parents, if their student can't get in, they go to the teacher and say, I can't log in.
Yeah.
They don't go to another parent.
No, I think the instruction should include that to the parents.
Okay.
Don't use somebody else's.
No, okay.
Yeah, that's true. You wouldn't want to use someone else's. And I definitely agree that there needs to be some standard language. Unfortunately, the provisioning of accounts, it's just not real time. There is literally no system out there. Unfortunately, believe you me, I've looked. Right now, the clever solution is probably one of the very, very best. But yeah, I wish it was real time. Okay.
All right, Lucas, you have 9 minutes.
Right. I'm going to be done in 9 minutes, I'll tell you that. So wanted to give you a quick update on the student information system. We are well on our way to implementing that. We've done a number of sessions with Infinite Campus, exploring all the settings that we have in our current system and getting those new system. This week, at the end of last week, we actually had our first look at the first round of data conversion, and it was actually quite good. This week, I think it's on Wednesday or Thursday, we have another round where we're going to be looking at the information. There were some things that we found in our first 4-hour session that needed to be tweaked, and some of it's actually already been adjusted. Today we had our training class for setting up security and permissions. And so our data division team is actually going through and replicating a lot of the same permissions that we had set up in Illuminate. And then, we've had to tweak things a little bit simply because from one system to the other, they can be slightly different. And we have a group of staff members who are also going through and taking a general course. It's kind of like an overview of the system called Mastering Campus. And this is really designed for, one, individuals who do need to understand the whole system, but also for individuals who maybe don't work in all parts of the program, but there's value in them seeing the overview of that. And I think we've got between 15 and 20 staff who are doing that. That course is a self-paced course that we have to complete within 3 weeks. It's between 24 and 30 hours, depending upon how long you spend on it. For some of us, by the time we go live, we'll probably have been sitting in 80 hours of training, which is really exhilarating, I'll tell you. But at least for me it is, I'll tell you. But the other thing I want to share is we actually do have a pretty comprehensive training plan that is coming right to the end of finalization. Kim Kelly, our Director of Curriculum and Instruction, has been working with me on that. And I frankly cannot say enough good things about her work on this. It would have been very hard for me to put this plan together. So I'll do a shout out to Kim and all of her work. You heard it from me, Dawn. Yeah. I have to say that, you know, I've been through data conversions and transitions from one student information system a number of times. And the point where we're at right now with the time frame that we had, I have to say this is about as smooth as I've ever seen it. But I do want to share that this is not going to be painless. Definitely not painless for me. And it's not going to be painless for, you know, all of our users. Just like when we went into shelter in place, there was a huge learning curve. And even with training and all the best planning that we can do, there's going to be a big learning curve and people are going to have to, you know, work their way through it. But I think we have a reality of a constraint here that we did not want to get to the end of this product and wonder if we were going to have the help that we needed. So that's where we're at with the student information system. Wanted to provide a quick update for teacher laptops. We have our 2 demo units in. We got those in last week, and we've been hitting them with hammers and kind of testing them out, and they're still working. So they're probably good laptops. We are now looking at developing an image for them, seeing if we can do that. But it does look like these laptops would definitely fit the bill for what our teachers would need. And we're also looking to standardize this as our administrator laptop as well. It is such a high-end laptop, frankly, that it would really meet the needs for any of our users. And the price on it is pretty phenomenal. And the price that we're getting for the purchase of $1,700 is the price that they will give us on an ongoing basis until this model is no longer available, which is a very good thing.
Lucas,
So that's where that's at.
I'm sorry, quick question on the laptops. You had mentioned that there was an intent to get these laptops pre-imaged before they ship them out. Is that still the plan?
Yes, that is still the plan. And I think it was like $20 per laptop, which is pretty decent.
Sure.
Yep.
Thanks.
And we're gonna get Windows 10 Education Edition put on it. For those who are familiar with the different versions of Windows 10, there's Windows 10 Pro, Windows 10 Enterprise, and the reason
Sorry
we're
to
going.
interrupt real quick. There's this downstairs I have to respond to real quick. I'll be back momentarily.
Okay. The reason we're going to go with Windows 10 Education Edition, which is almost identical to Enterprise, is Microsoft offers longer term support for certain versions of the Windows 10 operating system, the feature updates. And we've confirmed that with the Microsoft person at Dell. So that's why we're going to head that direction, where historically we've gone with Windows 10 Enterprise. Hotspot update. So I know some of the schools out there are waiting for hotspots, additional ones. We have narrowed down the need to roughly 300 additional hotspots, and we're pretty close to identifying the funding source for that. It might come from a couple different funding sources, but once we have that nailed down, we should be able to place our order and get those fairly quickly. I have not confirmed with our vendor for sure what the timeline would be, but the demand for hotspots is not what it was previously. It's not like Chromebooks where it's still 4 to 6 months out. Once we place our order, I would anticipate within 2 to 3 weeks we would have those. And then I know there was 3 items that Allison had brought up. So the School Loop to Google question, we do have our data division looking at this. I'm sorry to say I don't have an update for you specifically as to where they're at. But I know Mel's team, so I don't know if you know Mel Easley, he's our data administrator. His team is looking into how we can get those systems to talk properly in terms of passing assignments back and forth. I think the challenge is now that we have implemented, I think it's going to be a little bit more challenging to make that work because we're midstream. But he's looking into that. Student Gmail accounts, the only thing I can say there is we still have our limitation of our acceptable use agreement in our policies. I think the acceptable use agreement is the bigger barrier. And that's one of the reasons, of course, that we're looking to update the policy. I think, I haven't looked at the notes recently, but I think we're going to remove the language that would have the restriction in there. I think the bigger question then is once we've done that, how do we get the families to approve that? And that's a question I don't know off the top of my head. And then we also have the question about student authentication on Zoom. That's a little bit more complicated. One of the restrictions that we have for Zoom accounts is that if they are to actually set up a Zoom account, they do have to be 16 or older. So that would, of course, be a private Zoom account. In terms of the district actually paying for Zoom accounts for students, I believe that we would have to pay for a license for every single one of those. And so I believe that there is a cost barrier there for us. And just as a reminder, part of the reason when we went live, we did not require authentication was for this, well, there was 2 reasons. One was that we knew that if we went live, which was like 2 days later, that's true, they could have basic accounts. I just saw that in the notes. If they went live, if we went live, we knew there really wasn't time to get accounts into place. And we knew that some of our students were using their parents' accounts or whatever it might be. And so because it was like 2 days before the students had to check in or 1 day before the students had to check in, we knew if we put that authentication restriction in place, it was going to be a major, major problem. And that was also part of the teacher MOU. So we knew that that was going to be terribly disruptive. You ask a good question, Allison, about having basic accounts, and that may be a possibility. I did not explore that.
So Lucas, I have some documentation from, it looks like Centerville. Some of their teachers have figured out how to use authentication with the GAIF accounts, but it takes, it looks like it, I have to look at it a little bit more fully. It looks like the teachers need, or the staff needs to do a little bit more work on their end when setting up their classrooms.
I'd be very interested in hearing that because you can set it. We've been doing it at my school as well, but the kids can easily get around it as long as they're logged into Zoom with any account at all. It does let them in even when authentication is turned on, and so it's.
Yeah, let me look a little bit more closely because she did. This was from the assistant principal at Centerville, and I asked if I could share it with staff, and I have to look a little bit more fully. She said. She said, yeah, it'd be fine if I shared it with staff, but she said, please let staff know that there have been some issues that have needed troubleshooting. Most of the issues are the students are not logging in with Google. So they actually have to log in with their GAIF account. One student needed to be added to Zoom via the district tech help desk as well. So let me look a little bit more clearly at this. I didn't realize it was still such an issue, but I can look at it and then forward it to Lucas. If you have a contact that you want me to forward it to, because I don't just want to blast it out to anybody. and see if it's something that could be used or whether it's just at a, kind of a one-off thing.
Teachers would appreciate that, not just for a Zoom bombing perspective, but also because of things like breakout rooms. If you want to pre-assign breakout rooms, you need to know the email address of the student. And when it's a million different email addresses, that's very challenging. If it was just the FUSD K-12 account, that would be ideal.
All right.
But right now the system does not force them to log in with FUSD K-12, even if you have authentication turned on.
Okay, well, let me look at it and see if I can make head or tail out of that issue, and I can forward it out.
I will share, Allison, that, I mean, part of the reason that we haven't made progress on this is just there's so much happening.
Yep.
I mean, I will, I mentioned 80 hours of training. That actually probably is not an exaggeration for some of us. And, the data division and the systems team, our systems team is the equivalent of 1.16 staff members for a district of this size. And that's supporting all of our infrastructure, our wireless network, our virtual servers, and then they have to coordinate with the data division on this as well. So part of it has been frankly, a workload challenge for our team. If it was up to me, I think we would have probably come up with a solution already for this. And just know that I hear the frustration, especially when Zoom bombing happens. I do know that it does happen once in a while. There are some strategies with our current system that we can use. One of them is changing the Zoom links frequently. The feedback that we've received from some teachers, of course, is that it's just difficult to do that because their students have a hard time just using the same link over and over again. So I hear the frustration. We'll definitely look at it. I just can't guarantee any time frame here, just because of all the other things that we have happening.
Thank you for the update. Thanks for working on it. We just, our members want to know that some progress is being made. That's it. Thank you.
Yeah. Yep. Well, believe you me, I appreciate people's patience. I've had to ask for that a lot.
I'm sure in this day and age, it takes a lot.
I will finish with one final really positive thing. We've been without our second electronics technician for a few months now, and we did officially fill that. That person is an in-district employee who will be transferring from, I think he works at Kennedy right now, and he will be transferring and joining us in the middle of November. So that means that we will have another person who will be working on our phones and who is able to do low voltage cabling work for us and working on our clock bell speaker systems.
Great.
All right.
Sounds good. Anybody have any questions? All right, then I will confirm that our next meeting is December 7th at 7 o'clock right here, right here in your very room, unless something dramatic happens, at 7 o'clock, and it will be the same Google Meets link, and we will be all set. So I will call the meeting adjourned, and everybody have a good night. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, thank you.